G'day, I'm Mark Hoth and welcome to Swift Almanac. So here we go, putting a whole heap of things together, all done programmatically. This code is going to form the basis for our next two database series on core data and Firebase, so you'll be getting used to seeing this code. We're going to build a collection view in a NavController and then do the add, edit and delete functions. Add and edit will segue into a view controller where we will display some labels, text fields, segmented controls and steppers, and we will also be adding constraints programmatically. For this demonstration, we'll be using an array to store the data. This could be a long tutorial, so if you want to skip forward, I will mark where we're doing things so you can skip the stuff that interests you most. Here we go. Okay, so let's get started. Run through this as fast as I possibly can. So in Xcode, we want to go new project, just a single view app, and I'm going to call it Final. Final's in lowercase. I'm going to create it on the desktop, and we're doing it all programmatically, so we get rid of the launch screen. We're going to start off with a collection view. We're not going to need the main storyboard either. Let's set up our group of models. Going up there. And we're going to need another group for our view controllers. And in our view controller, we are going to have CocoaTouch class UI collection view controller, and we'll just call that my collection view controller. And eventually that controller is going to go to a, well, firstly we're going to need a collection view cell, so we'll call that my collection view cell, and then eventually that's going to go to a standard view controller, so we'll put that in there. As well. So in the settings here, we need to get rid of this launch screen, and we need to get rid of this main interface, and we just need to create a new file, which is going to be a view. We're just going to call that default. And then for the launch screen, we just need to set that to be the default.zib. And that's pretty much our project set up. So we're going to app delegate. And first thing we need to do is our little arrow in the storyboard. That's what we're going to run first. So we go window equals UI window. We need a rectangle, which is going to be the UI screen. Main.bounds. We need to set that equal to make key invisible. And we want to use a navigation controller, so we need to set up a navigation controller. So first we're going to our our collection view. So we'll get that, and then with our view controller equal to should really call that VC for view controller. And then we set the window root view controller equal to our nav controller. And we'll run that, make sure it's all working as expected. And of course our collection view must be initialized with a non-nil layout parameter. So let's add the, the view flow layout. And add it here. Okay, so that should bring up our window. Let's just quickly fix up our view controller so that it does the kind of things that we want. Let's call this my cell. And let's create our cell. Okay, so we'll override init frame, and then we just go super.init, pass the frame, and it is going to give us a warning about a required init, and we say yes, give us that to get rid of the error message. And then in our cell, we are going to just want a label. We'll call it the name label. And we'll give it a frame. And we'll go from 0, 0, width of see how that goes. And in our super init, we are going to need to set up the views. Just need to go add subview name label. Let's just make it a width of 100. Okay, so in my collection controller, we need to register. Now the class is my collection view cell, and we're calling it my cell, and we're using that reuse identifier. We don't need to worry about memory warnings. In a storyboard application, well, we're not in a storyboard, so we're not going to need that. Our data sections is going to be 1, and we need our array. We just put array.count to start off with, and let the cell equal CollectionView.dequeue reusable with reuse identifier. And we need to add as my collection view cell, and okay, so we need a database. So our collection view controller is always going to be on screen unless it's moved off to somewhere else, so we can put the data within here. But we need to create a model first, so we just quickly create a Swift file and call it my data. And my data just needs to be import foundation, and we'll create a data structure. So a struct my data. So we need a name, which will be a string, variable name, string, initialized to nothing. We'll have another variable called age, which will be an integer, which we'll set to 0. And we'll have another variable called gender, and we'll make that a boolean. Put a little note in here saying false equals male, true equals female. And we can even create, we could create an enumeration. I'm not going to bother. So that is our data structure, and here in our collection view, we want a variable array, which is going to be of type, did I call it my data? I did. And it's going to be empty when we start off. So we should get that. We should get our cells. Okay, so we've got a navigation bar. We've got our black, which is the default for our collection view. So let's make the background white and set a navigation title. Yes, let's do that. And the other thing we need to do here is just cell dot name label is equal to array dot, we call it name. And this value here is going to be the index path dot row. Now if we go back to our collection cell, actually we'll go back to our collection view controller, and up here dot white, let's give our navigation bar a title. So and set our navigation controller to not to be translucent is okay. Let's run that and see where we're at. Doesn't like this. Cell label.text. Okay, we've got my database. We have no records, and we don't know what the buttons are. So let's change the color of the cell to be a different color. Let's make it yellow, so we're going to read black text. And we'll see what our cells look like. I think that'll be a default square. Oh, we have no cells because our array is empty. Okay, so well, let's fix that up first. So We need a plus button up here in the top right hand corner, and then that's going to segue over to our view controller. Then we can add some data, then we can come back. So up in our view did load, we need to create this button. Let add button equal style item is dot add self selector add details, and then down here we'll create a function and of course we need to make that visible to Objective-C, and we need to add the button to a navigation bar. So it's the navigation item dot right bar button item. We're just adding one item. We set that equal to add button. I'm going to run that. So we've got our plus button up there. Let's see if it's actually doing something. That's all good. Okay, so now we need to set up the segue and view controller in code. And so what I'll do is I'll just stop and have a quick break, and we'll get onto that in 5 seconds. We need to create our view controller programmatically. So we'll call it our detail view controller, and it's going to be equal to my view controller. And then for an add item, it's going to be blank. So we just simply want to show detail VC, and the sender is self. And then if we go over to my view controller, the default color is black. Equals. Let's have a look at that. There you go. So we've got yellow, it's coming back. And we need a data record for our database. So record equals my data. And in my data, we set up default values for everything, so the structure will initialize like that. So we've got in our database, we have a name, an age, and a gender. So here we want to create name, which is a text field. We want to create gender, which is a selector. And what do I want to create? Age, which is an age which is a stepper. I had to look up what it was, dearie me, or what the official name was. In any event, I knew what I was doing. Okay, so we create those all programmatically. Okay, so let name text field equal UI text field, and we'll give it a frame, I should say. 0, 0, 200, 21, 030 text field. So this is a switch, and we're just going to say let gender switch equal UI switch, and we'll give that a rectangle. Zero, zero. And then we need our stepper, and we need to add all of those views. What am I doing? Add subview, gender switch, and view dot add subview age stepper, and then we need to set up constraints. And in fact, what we need to do is we need to make these set up here when we create the view controller, and then we add all the subviews. It's all yellow, and then set the constraints to position things accordingly. So with the constraints, I'm going to just move them just one after the other on this view, and I'll make the second and the third ones relative, and the constraints will look like this. Okay, so I've entered in all of the constraints, and we'll just run. So somewhere here, there we go, we've got a text field. We have a switch, and we have a stepper. So what we want to do is probably add some default values and center all of this, or perhaps center the top one at least, and maybe put a couple of labels over here. So we'll add a couple of labels, and I'll do the constraints for those back in 5 seconds. Okay, so I've now added a couple of labels for gender and for this stepper, and what we want to do is put some default values in and set values based on the data. So we've got my data here. So in my data, I'm going to set the age, the minimum age, to be 18. And then we'll go back to the view controller, and we will set up defaults, or we'll call it set up values rather than defaults. So we've got our record. It's got a name field, which is a text field. So we want to set our name text field dot text equal to the record name, we don't need a let comment there. And we have our gender switch. And that's got a function called isOn. So it's on if it's true, and in my data we said true would be female. So and then we had not sure which is which, but let's find out. We had a gender label. And we want a conditional expression. So I said if it was true, that was female. Otherwise male. And then for age, the stepper does nothing, but it. So we've got our age stepper. So we can give it a min value equal to 18 and a maximum value equal to, let's say, we're going to be ageist, we'll say 100. And our age label dot text we want to be set to our record dot age. So that should display everything into type string. Okay, so we've got some things in the wrong place constraint wise. Name is empty, so we should actually put a placeholder in there and set that to be centered. So I'll do that. Okay, so our placeholder's working, and these labels are in the wrong place, so I'll fix up the constraints and sort that out. Okay, so I've played around with the constants, or the constraints I should say, and for the final code I will update what these are, but that's not the case. So we're centering male, we've got a number there, we've got text here. So what we need to be able to do is be able to get these switches to move, which is something we haven't done previously, so I'll show you how to do that. So we need to find out about this switch, and we do that by setting a target. Gender switch dot add target. The target is self. The action is does it like that? I'm not sure if it does. Let's create the function. We have to add, of course, the Objective-C. So now this function is going to be called every time the value changes. And so what we want to do is record.gender is going to be equal to our switch dot is on, so that'll record that change, and then we need to update the label and if we run that, so that one's working. Now we've got our stepper that we want to do. So in our setup values, we didn't actually set a value for the stepper, and that of course is equal to our record.age. And we need to add another target here. Age stepper dot add target self age stepper move. And here we just want to, the stepper will do all of the minimum maximum for us. We just need to update the label so that we can see what's going on. In fact, we might want to do a little bit more than that. A little bit of typecasting. So now I've got 18, increments, decrements, won't go any lower. We hold it down, it'll eventually get to 100, we won't worry about that. And now that we've got this information, we want to get rid of this this automatic nav item, which just basically sends us back. What we want is we want a cancel button and we want a save button. Both of those are going to send us back, but we only want to actually, before I do that, I'm going to have a quick break, and so there'll be a 5-second wait, and then we'll do the navigation items. Okay, so we want to set up navigation. We can get rid of this did receive memory warning. So we need a save button. Showing off my C pedigree there. And we need a cancel button. And then we need to place these save buttons and the cancel button into the various locations. So let's have a look at that. So we've got our save and our cancel. We don't have a title, so I just quickly put a title in. So putting the title in. I'll just cut and paste this code out of the navigation section, and basically we want the title to be either a new record or an edit record, and so that's going to be dependent on whether or not there's a value of name. So we just put if record.name is empty. So if it's empty, it's going to say add record, otherwise it's going to say edit record, so that we know what so we know what state we're in. So we're in add record in that case. Okay, so now what we need to do, in fact, one thing I should say is because we're creating these labels and these buttons, we really want to do this at the top of the view did load, because the reason for that is this save button, if this value is empty, then we want the save button to be dimmed, and if we create the save button after we do the states, then we're in trouble. So in setup values, where we're setting all these states, we want to set in fact, what we want to do is we want to create these as part of the initialization process. Let save button and let cancel button. Okay, so then as part of our setting up values, what we can do is we can say if record.name is empty, then we want to set save button dot is enabled to false, and in fact there's a short way of doing that because is empty is a Boolean value. So we want to enable it if it is not empty. And the other thing we want to do is then, if this text field is changing in value, then we're going to want to get an update about that so that we can make the save button visible when there's text in here. And of course cancel is always going to be valid because we can cancel at any time. So to fix this text issue up, okay, so to get these values as the text changes, We need to set up another target. So it's our name text field, adding again self. The action is selector, and there's sort of like a default text field. Did change, and we want to pass the text field itself. In case there are more than one text fields, we want to know which one it is. And it's not value changed, it's editing changed is what we want to find out about. And it was a selector, so we need Objective-C to be able to see what's going on. Text, what do I call it? Text field did change. And it's going to, where is that? There it is. Text field is it's not a tax field, it's a text field, and text. Let's see if that works. Yes, and so every time we hit a character or something changes, we get that. So that's all working. So what we want to do now is we simply want to say, we want to take this and we will set the record.name equal to the text field dot text. So it's on the character, we're updating our local version of the record here, and if it's empty, it should disappear. Yes, let's unwrap that, force it. Title label. No, I don't want the title label to change. I want the button to change. Where's that? Where did I make that change? In setup values. Save button is enabled. There it is. Okay. So again, the save button is enabled if the record name is not empty. So save becomes active. When there's nothing there, you can't save it. So we're looking pretty good. And what we have here is an interface which doesn't allow us to do anything that would prevent us from being able to save the model. So you can either be male or female. Sorry to all our transgender friends out there. And you can only between 18 and 100, and you can only save if you actually have a name. So that's good. So now what we need to do is we need to get these functions for cancelling and saving working. And then if we do save, it's going to go and add it to our record. Come across a minor bug, I'm not quite sure what's causing it, but I'll figure it out before the end of the tutorial. So we've got our cancel record, which we can always cancel from by clicking on the cancel button. But you see when I'm clicking on this cancel button, it's not printing out cancel here like it should be. But when I type something in here and cancel, it cancels. So there's some sort of instantiation problem. It may be because I'm using 9.1 beta, who knows? It might be I've just stuffed up some programming somewhere. But in any event, what we want to do is we want to call the navigation controller, and we want to pop our view controller back to the previous one, and we'll make that animated. We need to put something there or nothing there, and if we cancel, it pops back. So that's working correctly. And I might point out that even though we've got the show here, if you want to sort of be a little bit consistent, I suppose, you can just type push view controller and send detail VC and animated is true. You can do it like that as well. So if you want to have it going push one way and pop the other way for consistency, you can do that. Still doesn't like that cancel button for some reason. There's some sort of delay. Anyway, okay, so we've got cancel working either with push. I'm going to leave it as push and pop. Makes it easier, I suppose, but you can use either. And then we've got this issue of saving the data back into the array, which we did with an unwind as part of a segue. Segues only exist in storyboards. They don't exist in the realms of programmatic code. Now, the problem with saving is that we could be adding or we could be editing. So we need to keep a record of a mode. You probably remember that we had this like record.name, but the problem is the name is being changed every time the text was changing here, our variable of name is changing. So we can't check to see if it's 0 or anything. So we sort of need a mode up here. So under our data, I've created an enumerator, types add and edit. And so here we can just type have a new variable called mode, and that's going to be equal to mode, like that. And what we need to do, because there's no segues, we need to basically create a delegate model so that we can pass data back from the calling view controller. So here, where we've got our detailed view controller, firstly, in our view controller that we're moving to, we want to know who delegated us here, and that's going to be equal to my collection view controller. And so here we can set up both the delegate is going to be ourself, and the mode is going to be .add. And when we get to doing the edit from people double clicking on the collection cells when they double click or whatever, that's going to move to edit. So so the mode here is .add. We go back to our view controller. Now, when we save the record, we're going to know what the mode is, because that's going to be passed from the collection view when we hit the plus. So we can just simply go if mode equals .add, then we're going to add a record, and otherwise we should really go else if mode equals .edit, which is really modify a record, and otherwise well, this really shouldn't happen because we've got a enumerated type, so the only options are add and edit, but maybe we'll add a different type in later. So we'll go print this shouldn't happen. And so for adding a record, we have our delegate, which is the collection view controller. So we want to add, and we want to pass our record back. And if we've modified a record, delegate dot modify that's the modify record. So if we go back to the collection view, we need to add those functions in. So we need a function called add, which is a record of type my data. And we need a function called modify record of my data. Ooh. And we'll compile that. Yes, we did mean to unwrap it. And we did mean to unwrap that. I don't think I need to use that optional. That should be forced. I'm sure I need it like that. Okay, so save's been called, and if we go back to our collection view controller, this is just simply going to append the record, and we'll print rate.count. Should give us 1. So it's when we hit it again, saving and doing all the rest of it, that's all fine. And then at the end of the save record, we just want to go to our navigation controller and pop the view controller, and then that will send us back to our collection view. Okay, so that's moving back, so that's all good. Now we've actually adding some data, so we can start looking at this collection view to make it display the data that we are creating. Take another 5-minute break. In fact, I'm going to have lunch and I'll be back in 30 minutes. Okay, so let's go back to our collection view controller, and I think what we will do is we will set up a default value. Have we got my genders around the right way, and just get rid of all of the junk, and let's see what gets displayed. Okay, so we've got Audrey and Brian, we've got a couple of yellow boxes, so we've got a couple of records there, and what we want to do is we want to set up these cell dimensions correctly and center these labels. So I've got this subview setting up the view. We will also set up the constraints. I'll do those quickly. Okay, so we need to do our cell flow. It's got a nasty name. Delegate flow layout, and then we need to set up those collection view size for item at. That's what we need. Return to CG size. So we just put return CG size, width and height. So the width is just going to be view.bounds.the width, and the height will make 44. And we'll run that. There we go. So we've got Audrey and Brian. Still need to fix up these cells so that they're centered. Okay, so I've placed the constraints, and we're just simply constraining the left, right, top and bottom to the underlying cell. Okay, so if we look at, we've got add details. We just might as well just quickly put in the equivalent for editing, seeing as we've got data there now to test. And it's called did select item at, and so I just want to go print edit item, and we're just going to copy this code from add details. So we're going to create our detail view controller, set the delegate to self. The edit mode is going to be .edit, and then we're going to push on to the view controller. And then on the other side, at the view controller, actually before we do that, and what we need to do is we need to set detail VC dot record equal to array index path dot row. So here we are passing that record to the new view controller, and then when we go set up values, it will see that all those record values are in there, and it should just work. Let's have a look. So we've got Audrey's female, and she's 34. We can cancel. We can't cancel. Maybe now we can. I have to fix that bug. Brian's male and 27, so that's good. And now all we need to do is save and update. Just go add. Mike is a male who's 20. Go save. So it's not updating those cells, but it has told us that we've got 3 there. So we need to update the data, and we need to have a way to update information that's in this area as well. So in terms of updating the data, we just need to call the reload data function, and if we run that, so we get Audrey, Brian and Simon, so that's all fine. And now we have this issue with updating a record. So there is up here, uncomment the following line to preserve selections between presentations. So we want to preserve the selection, and that means that when we click on the first item, when it comes back, we'll know which record that we want to update. Okay, so to modify a record, we have we've kept this clear selection on view will appear, so it means we are remembering what's selected. So we'll get the index path from the collection view dot index path for select items. Now, so this is an array of items, and essentially we're only going to select one item because we're moving from the collection view to a view controller. So there's only one item in the array. So what we want to do is we go array dot remove at index path. There's only one option dot row, and then we want to add or append, I should say, the record that we've been given, and then we need to do this reload data again to update what's going on, and that will allow us, no it won't, it's not unwrapped, okay, yes we will force unwrap that. Okay, so we've got Audrey up there. We'll change her to a male, and we'll change it to Audrey to Seymour. Those people who've watched Little Shop of Horrors. So we've got Seymour's there. Seymour's a male. He's 37. And I've noticed that unless that's active, those buttons aren't working. So we'll be able to fix that in a second. Same with Brian, we'll change his name to Brian2, we'll save that, and we've got an issue here that things aren't being sorted, so we can do the sorting. That's pretty straightforward as well. So when we get our data, sort by my data throws blah 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 blah. So we want to sort by $0.name is less than $1.name. I'm pretty sure that's correct. Let me have a quick look. I think I'm just using the wrong closures. Get rid of the by. Okay, so our sort order is still correct. So when we add or append a record here, we'll get rid of the print statement because we know it's working. We'll put the sort in, and for the modify, after we append the record, put the sort in. Oops, but we don't want to, and run that. So that's working. Yes, our sort alphabeticalized is all working as well. So that would be everything. There's probably some, well, there's definitely some ugly things here in how we have added and modified our record. We're not really following any MVC model here, but our data is belonging currently to our collection view controller. So when we do the databases, we'll do it a lot nicer. I'll leave the default values in there for the code that you can download. And oh, I've got to fix up this first point of contact thing. Okay. So when we go to our view controller, when we are setting up the values there, we want name text field dot Come first responder. I think that will fix the problem. There's Brian, it's already, yes. So we are all good. Okay, I'll get rid of some of these error messages and I'll upload the software. And yeah, if you've got any questions, comment below. The source code will be at that URL, and look forward to doing core data with you in the near future. Cheers. Well, that's it. All working with a collection view, and it covers a lot of the basics of interface development, all in code. Next, we're going to be using this project to show how we can save the data persistently with both core data and Firebase. So look out for those series of tutorials. If you have any questions about this tutorial, then please leave a comment below or hit me up on Twitter at SwiftAlmanac. Please subscribe to the channel, it's free, and check out our website at www.swiftalmanac.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.